Chapter 1. Long ago, in the Age of Peace, there was a very wealthy family which owned many lavish estates. They lived in a quaint village not far from the city of Genshaw, on the rift plain Enox. Together, the whole family lived peacefully in that forgotten village. The estate was called Contrax, after their family surname. For 2,000 years, the family never ventured out or moved away from their village, and they followed the light all the days of their lives. In the year 6470, there was a woman who married one of the sons of the Contrax family, and they sought to bear children, but her womb would not conceive a child. And her husband prayed to Toniel, saying, "Lord, give us a child. We will give anything to continue our lineage." Then, one night, Toniel himself appeared before the man and his wife, and he said unto them, "In 9 days, your wife will conceive a male child, but not of your own will. Indeed, I will forge the child's soul, and I will place him inside your womb." So, it came to pass, that in 9 days the woman became pregnant. And when she gave birth to the child, Toniel appeared before them, and he said, "He shall be called Orion, for he shall ascend higher than many, and he shall surpass boundaries." And when he said this, they thought to themselves, "Could this be the dawn star, the one who will vanquish the darkness?" But Toniel heard their thoughts and said, "This child is not the one, but many in his lifetime will look to him as the dawn star, for he will accomplish great things, and his name will be engraved in the stars." When he said this, the man and his wife were bewildered. So, in the first month of the year, Orion Contrax was born. And his soul was special, because it was forged by Toniel himself, not by the joining of his father's and mother's souls. Therefore, Toniel's protective hand was upon him. And when he was born, there came an army of bandits from the province of Landir in the north, and they purged the Contrax estate of all its riches, and they slaughtered everyone. Orion alone was left alive. The bandits were from a city called Kellara, which lay near the border of the provinces of Landir and Ovesh, facing the great river of Ephraim. The bandits were also part of an organization called the Prancing Foxes, who worked for a woman named Jerusalem, a conniving and scheming woman. Jerusalem was known to be an assassin whom certain nations would hire to serve their purposes in war. They took Orion as an infant into the city of Kellara, to bring him before Jerusalem. When the bandits had brought the child into their hideout in the city, Jerusalem, reclining in her couch, said, "Is this the child who was born into the family of Contrax, on the first day of the year?" "Indeed," they replied. So Jerusalem sat up to take a closer look at the child. She remarked, "So this is the child who will one day conquer many nations? How interesting. My visions these past months must be true, for he was born on the exact day I was told." This she knew because the precursor Kyphon had given her knowledge of Orion's future. And because Jerusalem and the Prancing Foxes did not want their future plans to be hindered, they sought Orion's life, believing he would one day conquer their land. However, as Jerusalem and her bandits were about to kill him, 4 angels from Amnia appeared in an instant on either side of the child. Trembling in fear, Jerusalem screamed, and the bandits ran out of the hideout. Then one of the angels said to her, with a voice like thunder, "Though you seek to prevail over your own government, and to make yourself queen, you and your henchmen will learn the futility of your plans in due time." For the next 7 months, the angels watched over Orion, protecting him from every criminal and Umbrian who sought his life. When the people of the city began to notice the miracles surrounding the child which were performed by the angels, it became common thought in the city that the child was the dawn star of the prophecy. So the rulers of Kellara came to find Orion, who was in a basket in an alleyway at the time, being watched over by the 4 angels. The rulers of Kellara, seeing Orion in the basket, said to each other, "Let us take him into our court, so that we may raise him. For this must be the chosen one. Surely if we raise him, we will be under his protection, and no kingdom will be able to destroy us." So they took Orion up, and they brought the child into their court in the center of the city. Then the rulers of Kellara made a proclamation to their citizens, saying, "Let no word of this reach outside the city. For if any other nation or kingdom hears about us having the dawn star, they will surely seek to steal him from us, destroying our city in the process." The rulers treated Orion poorly, keeping him malnourished and locked in a cell under their estate. By that time, word of the child had already reached many nearby cities and towns. Many of the surrounding cities made attempts to breach the walls of Kellara, but were all defeated. This became the normal way of things for the city, until a certain powerful kingdom from the east of Landir reached Kellara. The kingdom of Terragard was a great and powerful kingdom ruled by King Tezcanat, a menacing man enslaved by his own rage. Terragard, being greatly influenced by the beast, was solely set on expanding its borders to cover the entire Rift Plain. King Tezcanat was a puppet under Infernos. So when Tezcanat heard about this child in Kellara, he immediately steered his military toward its direction from the mountains of Shana in the north. In the middle of the night, while Orion was sound asleep in the cell he was kept in, being the age of 5, the great armies of Terragard reached the walls of Kellara. Great explosions of arc light impacted the walls of the city, until they all fell down with a great noise. All the citizens of Kellara awoke in terror. The horsemen of the Terragard army stormed through the streets and alleys, burning down every building with their arrows and arc light. During this time, a group of elves were camped outside the city ruins. Just a few hours before the army had laid siege on Kellara, the elves had heard from Toniel in Amnia, commanding them, "Behold, a great army from the east is about to destroy the city of Kellara. Then I will send my angels to blind their army, and you must take the child Orion with you as you escape the land." After the armies had destroyed the city of Kellara, only its center remained, the governing court, where Orion was being held. The rulers were cowering in fear, hiding in their chambers, while the general who led the Terragard army went back and forth on his horse, encircling the court. Then the general ordered some of his troops to blast open the walls of the court, so that its interior would be exposed. Now that the rulers of Kellara were exposed, the general shouted at them, "Bring the child to me. If not, you will join your people in their graves." With great hesitation, the rulers went to the cell to unlock it, and they dragged Orion out to face the army of horsemen encircled around their estate. As Orion was about to be handed over to the general of the army, suddenly a bright flash of light showered over the entire city ruins, and it blinded every man on their horse. Then, as Orion was crying, one of the elves swept him off his feet from behind. From thence the elves made haste and escaped the city ruins, until they returned to their encampment. The group of elves were 3 men and a woman, who were from the city of Genshor. And they had with them their own wagon. And the wagon, having an elven design, was able to cover more distance in a shorter time than the average wagon. So they tore down their camp and stored their things in the back of the wagon. Ermiel, the woman, held Orion in her lap, as they began to drive along the road leading southward. In 3 days the elves reached the city of Genshor. Upon their arrival, they brought Orion into their houses under the trees. Ermiel and her husband eventually began to raise Orion in their tree mansion as their own, and they often received visions and heard voices from Toniel concerning Orion's future. Chapter 2. Orion was raised in the city of Genshor by the elves. The 2 elves who raised him in their tree mansion, Ladriel and Ermiel, were told by Toniel, "This child is not the Dawnstar, though many in his lifetime will look to him as the prophesied one. However, the child will surpass many boundaries, and his name will be echoed down the halls of history." So Ladriel and Ermiel began sending Orion to the local training camp by Genshor, hoping he would become a skilled warrior. But soon they discovered he had arc-light in his soul, and that he was indeed an Aeon. With each and every hour that the elves would watch Orion train in the outdoor arena, they would grow in their appreciation and respect for him. And many of the Aeons of the city would say, "This boy has a very high level of potency in his arc-light, that even a single spark of blaze from him could set the entire arena on fire, and how can this boy not be the chosen one? His parents must be crazy." For Ladriel had made it clear to the citizens of Genshor what Toniel had told them.